Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Lions gashed the Ravens on the ground to secure the upset win in Baltimore. Also, Nick Bosa is done for the season after suffering a torn ACL, and Kevin Durant made a huge mistake.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
Well, that's more like it from the Detroit Lions offense the last 2 weeks after a 50-burger on the Chicago Bears. How about 38 on the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore, a 38-30 win. They go to 2-1. Matt Derry from Locked On Lions joins me now. And Matt, this is not what week one looked like. So what has been the difference the last 2 weeks here?
I mean, the offensive line looks like itself again. You know, week one, they were working out the kinks. They had 3 new starters there. Packers played a heck of a game. But then week 2 against the Bears and then tonight against the Ravens, my goodness, just coming off the football, over 220 yards rushing. David Montgomery with a $151, including a 72-yard run. Play action passing game, giving Goff time to throw. And let's talk about the defensive line. A no-show in Green Bay. Jordan Love had all day, all game. And they get 7 sacks on Lamar Jackson. Everybody's so worried about the edge opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, yet Al-Qadim Muhammad flexing all night. I didn't call this one, but I knew the Lions had a chance to win. I predicted them to win by 1, but I didn't expect this. This was a dominant performance.
And this was, building on what we saw last week in terms of, get right games. And you mentioned the sack totals. They still gave up 30 points, but was it more important to carry the offensive momentum forward or find ways to plug some of the holes defensively in this one?
No, look, Pete, you know this, and you've watched this team. They've got to score. They get the momentum with long drives, power football, establishing their will. The Ravens hadn't given up a 90-yard drive since 2001. They gave up 2 tonight,
wow.
A 98-yard drive and a 95-yard drive. And all of it was predicated on the run game. This wasn't an Amon-Ra St. Brown a good game, but Ian Jamison Williams and Tesla, they didn't dominate. I mean, this was a ground and pound type performance where you mix in Gibbs and Montgomery. Johnny Morton deserves a lot of credit. Ben Johnson leaving, and the sky was falling. Oh, no, what are they going to do without Benedict? Well, I'll tell you what they're going to do. John Morton's got flea flickers going. He's got a pitch, St. Brown on an option pitch to Gibbs for a touchdown. A lot of creativity, and the Lions did it 2-1.
No Isaac Tesla on one-handed catches, though.
No. They targeted him. They tried, but, man, Sam Laporta came up big tonight. I was stunned at how well they were able to buckle in and kind of just keep Lamar Jackson and the Ravens ground game and Derrick Henry intact. And then Hutchinson, quiet night until he forces a huge fumble on King Henry. That's his 3rd in 3 games. And Lions needed to win the takeaway battle. That was a big takeaway in that game.
Yeah, 426 yards of offense against any defense would be pretty impressive in the NFL. To do it against the Baltimore Ravens, a purported Super Bowl team here, even more impressive. And really that 4th down, Matt, the 4th and 2 at midfield, that was the game, right? And they had the perfect play dialed up to all the questions. Look, I had them. I had them. We talked about it on our crossover show, our NFC North preview show. What does John Morton have in the bag for those moments? And on 4th and 2, he pulls out a dandy, getting Amon-Ra St. Brown wide open. Game basically over from there, even though, the Ravens eventually get their points. But that was the game to me. If you get a stop there and you're Baltimore, you're right back in this thing.
Yeah, they go to the 2-minute warning, obviously, and they go to commercial break. And I texted somebody at the stadium, and they said the offense is still on the field. I'm like, oh, they're punting. Nope, not Dan Campbell
does.
And play action, you get St. Brown in motion. You motion him tight onto the line, and they run a play action fake. Look, they probably could have run David Montgomery and gotten 2 yards. That's what they did all night. But to get the play pass and get St. Brown behind Marlon Humphrey, made the play, got held anyway. Pretty gutsy, and Lions got to feel pretty good about themselves now. And remember, They got to play the Bengals in a couple weeks now without Joe Burrow. So that schedule, which looked a little bit daunting all year, now might get a little break here with Cleveland and Cincinnati back-to-back.
You can stay up to date all year on the Detroit Lions by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Lions on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Your Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, the 49ers are losing Nick Bosa for the season. Before we get to that, the Houston Rockets are losing Fred VanVleet for the season. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I want to bet in that moment. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Rockets guard Fred VanVleet has torn his ACL and is likely to miss the season, forcing Houston to turn to Reed Shepherd at the point.
To me, this position for Fred is a nod to winning. Right. I mean, this, what Fred doesn't jump off a stat sheet. Right. But the consistency and the winning pedigree that he brings to your team warrants him to be up this list. Right. And I think this is one of the things that the guys actually got right, because if you put Fred VanVleet on your team, you're going to have a winning team. You know what I mean? Fred VanVleet hasn't played on many losing teams, and that guy just knows how to get stuff done. And the Rockets are the biggest proof of that, right? As he's come onto this team, he's settled our guys down. He's got them lined up. He's held them accountable, and now he's our pseudo.
Over in the NFL, Cowboys receiver CeeDee Lamb is expected to be out 4 to 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain.
For the Cowboys offense, high ankle sprains have turned into the Achilles heel. Hi, I'm Landon McCool with the Locked On Cowboys podcast, and if the Cowboys losing in an embarrassing fashion wasn't enough for us, the Fates have turned another ankle or two in this situation. Last week, Cooper Beebe got a high ankle sprain that's going to keep him out for 4 to 6 weeks. And then this week against the Bears, 2 more high ankle sprains, the most high profile being, of course, Cowboys all-pro wide receiver CeeDee Lamb, who has a high ankle sprain. And then just announced not too long ago, rookie Tyler Booker also appears to have a high ankle sprain despite finishing the game. And he also appears to be 4 to 6 weeks. Lots of terrible injury news for the Cowboys coming out. There's tons to talk about. Make sure you guys are checking us out on the Locked On Cowboys podcast for more on this.
And the coaches have already started going in the NFL. The Falcons have fired wide receiver coach Ike Hilliard after Atlanta's slow start to the season.
The Falcons are firing their wide receivers coach, and I'm skeptical whether or not it's going to make a difference. On Monday, the Falcons announced the decision to fire wide receiver coach Ike Hilliard, and they will be replacing him with passing game coordinator TJ Yates, who served as the Falcons wide receiver coach under previous head coach Arthur Smith in 2022 and 2023. Now, I don't necessarily buy into this notion that Yates is going to solve any problems, because one of the complaints I had, particularly during the 23 season when Yates was the wide receivers coach, was a lot of the Falcons pass catchers failed to make the adjustments. They didn't necessarily focus on the details. The most prominent example is when opposing teams would blitz, they would not understand that they were hot and would adjust their routes accordingly. And so to me, when I look at this wide receiver core that has struggled through the first 3 games in this 2025 season, some of that may be attention to detail, not necessarily be synced up with quarterback Michael Penix several times, not necessarily being on the same page. You need a coach that's going to get them to pay attention to details, and Yates's body of work does not suggest that he is the answer to that. So it does feel like Ike Hilliard has become a little bit of a fall guy or a scapegoat, that, someone's head must roll for the Falcons' slow start offensively this season. And because the wide receivers went from a bona fide strength of this team a year ago to what seems to be much more of a weakness this year, it is Hilliard that's, had his head below the axe. And so we'll see if this works. For more coverage of the Falcons' adjustments as they, prepare for their week 4 matchup against Washington before going into their bye week, make sure you follow Locked On Falcons, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The San Francisco 49ers can't seem to shake the injury bug, with the latest loss being a monster one. Locked On 49ers host Brian Peacock discusses San Francisco's plan now that defensive end Nick Bosa is out for the year.
Do they trade for a defensive end? I think the answer is you probably are looking into certain people that may be available right now. And there's definitely a name that I'm sure is floating around. We're going to talk about that more in a little bit. But I think right now you're trying to figure out in-house, how do we salvage the situation? Because, yeah, you can try to trade for a defensive end. Any defensive end that's worth a damn, except for one that's out there that we'll talk about. But any defense that is defensive end that is worth a damn, teams ain't giving him up. Right now, Dallas Cowboys, that was an anomaly, trading Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers. And obviously, like it was very pricey in what Green Bay had to give up for 49ers. They're not giving up anything like that for, I don't want to say a one-year rental, but a guy that essentially they're trying to get through this season with. So I don't foresee the 49ers giving up big-time draft capital the way Green Bay Packers had to. But I think you have to start in-house, all right? Kind of looking at the depth chart of the 49ers, and you're looking at the defensive line. And obviously, man, you go to ESPN right now and look at the depth chart. They already have Nick Bosa out of there. So as of today, right now, your defensive end for the 49ers are Bryce Huff, who you traded for and got from Philadelphia Eagles. All right, and he's been doing well. And Mykel Williams, your number 11 overall draft pick in the 2025 draft. All right, so those are the two guys that you're kind of leaning on. And then outside of them, you look and see, all right, what else do we have here? Your two gross models. That's a guy that is a little bit versatile, a bigger body guy, kind of like what Mykel Williams is a little bit. You have him. You got Sam Okawanu. All right, got him, a guy that can kind of come off the edge. So can you piece together certain things that are going to help you get through this season with the 49ers on that defensive line? Hey, there's some other things that you can do as well, right? You can send some different looks, different blitzes. You got a guy by the name of Fred Warner. And that's where I was going with, right? When you look to the leadership that the 49ers will now be missing. Fred Warner is a guy that you are definitely going to you're going to look at him. He's been the emotional leader anyways. Like, we know that. But we know Nick Bosa makes those big plays when those big plays are needed. We saw that against the Seattle Seahawks in the red zone there, right? Coming up with like essentially a big kind of sack strip. It kind of bull rushed his guy into the quarterback's lap. All right, either way, he's there to make those big plays when you need it. And as of right now, 49ers are going to have to figure out how the young guy can do it. All right. He's going to have to grow up really fast. And that young guy we're talking about is Mykel Williams. He's done some really good things in the run game. I think he's very stout and has a good anchor versus the run. I think we all knew we were getting a player that was similar, that was going to be doing those things, right? Mykel Williams, it wasn't going to be him as a pass rusher coming in. You wanted him to be that guy that was, really stout versus the run in college. And now, I think he's going to have to grow up a little bit faster, develop some pass rush moves, and figure out a way to not be Bosa, but can the 49ers get a few different guys to kind of give you Bosa's production? That's how you're going to have to do it. Now, I don't know if that's possible, all right, but that's where the 49ers have to start. Terry Dome in the chat says, the 0-4 teams currently in the NFL: Jets, Dolphins, Titans, Giants, and Saints. All right, so those are teams that do not have any wins right now. Obviously, the 49ers are on the opposite end of that, being 3-0 right now. It's tough. And when I saw that news this morning, my text group chat starts going up. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys, have the group chats and you're texting guys, or you guys are on the social media, you're on X, and everyone sees that news around the same time. And I was thinking about, this season has started off terrible just with the injuries. And you're going to start getting some guys trickling back on the opposite side of the ball. But, man, if there's one thing, it's a gift and a curse for the 49ers. Their schedule will keep them in this. Now, I know what people are saying. Oh, you never know with the schedule, and teams change. We just saw the Bears beat up on the Dallas Cowboys. I never thought I'd see that, right? But ultimately, it's a favorable schedule the way it's kind of played out. I think it played out that way for the 49ers week 2 against the Saints. I think week 3 with Arizona, you always got those, divisional games. But week 4, Jacksonville Jaguars, right? Like when you think of kind of those games and what the 49ers are facing, I mean, I watched the Houston Texans. They're going to face them in a little bit. Not scared. The Colts look a little bit better, right, with Daniel Jones. But, man, I think the schedule makes it to where it kind of softens the blow of this injury a little bit, but it definitely evens the playing field. Hell, I think everything kind of evens the playing field for the 49ers at this point. I was on the post-game show with Triple E, and we were talking about the 49ers kind of not as a trap game, but it was kind of by Dwayne Board. He kind of mentioned it. He was like, "Oh, you don't want to overlook the Jaguars," and kind of alluded to it as more of a trap game. I'm like, I don't think anybody's a trap game for the 49ers at this point. Maybe if they had all their guns, right? Maybe if they had, Brandon Ayuk and Jawan Jennings and the best version of Christian McCaffrey, or one that we saw. I still think he's kind of still recovering from some of the injuries, but, Brock Purdy, and we'll see if he's healthy enough to play. I believe he will. But when you have everybody, George Kittle, you have everyone, and you want to call a game a trap game, I get it. But right now, the 49ers, I mean, they are playing almost with one hand tied behind their back, trying to figure out how to win these games.
Stay up to date all year on the San Francisco 49ers by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On 49ers on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, Kevin Durant made a mistake by joining the Houston Rockets. According to reports, NBA star Kevin Durant blocked a potential trade to the Golden State Warriors, instead choosing to head to Houston. Locked On NBA host Matt Moore and Hayes discuss whether or not Durant made the right move or if this was the biggest mistake of his career.
I think it's important to understand that KD doesn't feel like there is that perception gap. Like he's like, well, I'm one of the all-time greats. I've won 2 titles. Like he feels like he's certified. I do think there's a lot of fans that feel they're always kind of like, yeah, but you need to do it with the Warriors. And Steph was always the guy there. But KD doesn't seem to really care about that. So I think he made the right decision because that wasn't what he wanted. Like he wanted to go play for Udoka. He wanted to go play in Houston. Like that's the decision that he wanted to make, is he wanted to go there. And so from that perspective, I think there's no right or wrong. It's just like, what did KD want? I don't know that KD needs another title. I don't know that KD would have, if another title changes a lot of my calculation of where he's going to wind up on the all-time. So I don't have a problem with what he did. I'm grateful because it would have been just like a very boring storyline to me to get that group back together a couple of years older. It just feels very boring to me. So I'm glad because now we have this new thing in Houston. We can evaluate. We have Jimmy in Golden State. It's a lot more interesting for the league with KD not having made that decision.
I agree 100%. Way more interesting. Kevin Durant going back to Golden State would have been boring, to your point, Matt. But let's just play that hypothetical out. Let's say Durant is traded to Golden State instead of Jimmy Butler in February. You've got Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, that group, right? You just put Kevin Durant in that team. That team made the playoffs. Phoenix didn't. We would have seen Durant and Steph and Draymond in the playoffs. What like hypothetically, what could that team have done, Matt?
I think they lose to the Wolves in the second round. Maybe they get out and they wind up breaking out that tiebreaker. So they wind up in a different seeding, right? But I think they still lose first or second round. I just don't think the Warriors were that good. I think Curry still has most of the plays where he's Steph. There are a couple more where he doesn't look quite like himself. And that's just normal as guys get older. Draymond's the same deal. Draymond's offensive numbers continue to get worse and worse. And that's what's kind of funny is some of the Warriors' wins last season were because Draymond had great offensive games. The absence of Klay Thompson means it wouldn't really be a 1-to-1. You don't have that other shooting threat because that was one of the problems. Is it's like you got to send help at KD, but if you do, one of Steph or Klay is going to be open, and you're dead every single time. I don't think their defense would have been as good. I don't think their offense would have been as good. I am just not a believer in this current iteration of the Warriors, even if they had added Kevin Durant.
I don't understand the criticism here. If you want to criticize Kevin Durant for the move he made to Golden State the first time, I'm open to that conversation. Scared to compete. I don't agree. He wanted to have fun playing basketball, and it was fun for him. the Warriors, and no one else to play basketball over those handful of seasons until, of course, injuries scuttled a dynastic run. But why would he want to go back? He left in part because he stopped being happy playing basketball, realizing he's never going to get the credit that he feels like he is owed for helping that team win championships. It's always going to be Steph Curry's team. That was not going to change in the year of our Lord 2025. But you go to Houston, where they have this young, hungry team full of athletes, full of guys to do all the dirty work, to play defense, to defend the rim, to rebound, to set picks, to free him up to do the things that he is best at doing at the end of games in particular. That's Houston. And it gets to be his team. There are no questions about who gets the last shot, and there are no questions about who is going to get the credit. If they make a deep playoff run, Kevin Durant will get the credit. If they win a title, it will be Kevin Durant's title and no one else's. This is an easy decision to me. Houston was always the place, if I was Kevin Durant, that I would have wanted to go. And finally, the Packers have pulled off one of the strangest stats of this young NFL season. They're the only team in the league that hasn't trailed for a single solitary second of regulation through 3 weeks. The twist? They are not undefeated. Green Bay is 2-1 after routing the Lions and the Commanders and then losing inexplicably to the Browns on a last-second field goal. Proof that you can play from ahead all year and still somehow take a loss. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports today, hey, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, what are we supposed to make of the Colts 3-0